Okay, so we are up to day 184 of going through my old journal, and the quote for this day says, "Adversity causes some men to break, others to break records." How do you act in the face of adversity? What adversity in your life gave you the biggest growth and how? So if you're following along, you might take a minute to pause and think about how you might respond to this. And I will read what I wrote. And yeah, I think I have a thought on this that I've been coming around to more recently, but we'll see what I wrote back at this time. So I said, honestly, I don't think I've had to face much adversity in my life, or if I did, it was at a time that I was too young or naive to realize it. I feel very fortunate to have grown up at a time and place where women are granted a lot of rights, and I mentioned this on my video the other day when I talked about men and women. Because of this, I've never felt like being a woman has held me back from anything. However, I feel like things may have gone differently for me had I been a little less attractive and or less agreeable in the past. Okay, interesting. Okay, what am I gonna write next? Let's see. But yeah, just to touch on that, I've mentioned this before, like, I know I'm not like gorgeous by any means, but I'm attractive enough that I feel like it's been beneficial to me in life. And also, like I said in another video, I think I kind of like saw myself in the role of like peacemaker in my family, and or even maybe not like a peacemaker between members of my family, but like I just wanted to, I don't like conflict, so I would try to do whatever I could to like stay away from conflict. So I was really obedient in school. Whenever I worked jobs, I always, like listened to the managers and never like really put up a fight against any of that. And more and more I see women talking about these things and how that's just kind of the role a lot of women naturally take on, because that's what they've kind of placed on us in society, is like, don't speak up, don't speak out, and if you do, then you're kind of labeled, like a B word, or people see you in a negative light, even though men can like do those things and they're viewed as like powerful and strong and things like that. But when women do it, they're, it's not seen in the same way. And I don't know if I talked about this. I'll just keep reading and see, because I've got one like thing that happened that this reminds me of. I said, while I tend to disagree with a lot of what the health at every size activists tend to preach, I do agree that society treats people worse as they get less attractive. So yeah, there was like a time, I guess this must have been whenever I was writing this a couple years ago, a year or two ago, that I was coming across a lot of content on YouTube and other places about like the health at every size movement. And just having my background, because even though I'm in ag policy right now and ag economics, I was previously in like kind of towards a medical track, and so I'd had a lot of like health classes, and I have, I've always been interested in kind of like health, not necessarily fitness, but I'm becoming more interested in fitness and health right now. But based on everything I knew from like my biology classes and things like that, like it was just a lot of the health at every size stuff. It just didn't add up for me. And they would cite some of these studies, and I'm like, yeah, but you're picking and choosing parts of these studies. And then when they started to talk about the correlation doesn't equal causation, just because a lot of obese people have these bad health things, it's not the obesity that's causing it, it's all these other factors that people aren't looking at. But I'm like, yeah, but sometimes a correlation is linked to a cause. And anyway, yeah, I was just like very, very skeptical of the health at every size movement, and I still am. I do think that you don't have to be like super thin to be considered healthy, but when you start getting up to bigger and bigger sizes, like, yeah, you're not going to have good health outcomes once you put on this much extra excess weight. But anyway, okay, so I do agree that society treats people worse as they get less attractive, or maybe it's a lack of confidence that comes with being less attractive. But I don't think it's really that, because there was a time that I had put on quite a bit of weight over the span of a year or so. I didn't really notice that I put on that much weight, but I started to see a difference in how I was being treated. At first I thought it was a fluke, that it was just the particular group I was associating with. And at this point, I was kind of like, I got roped into this project, and most of them were kind of like guys that were in like the entrepreneur, like kind of angel investing. And even though I was in Arkansas, there's still this like group of like people that are into like building entrepreneurs, and you do have some of like the crypto bro types and things like that. And I had gotten pulled in on this project because I had some knowledge on the type of product that this guy was wanting to develop, and I was more knowledgeable than like most people in the area on that. And so he had gone to like this competition where you would pitch your idea and see, you know, kind of practice giving your like elevator pitch or whatever. And I was there, and he gave a terrible pitch. Like, I was just like, oh my gosh, he did not even prepare for this. Like, it was terrible. And then, but the topic was so interesting, the thing that I knew about, that people still like approached him afterwards to want to know more about it. And like, people are asking him all these questions. He didn't know the answers because he wasn't really the expert in the topic. And I would step in and like start answering the questions. And I was just like completely ignored. Like, I'd never been like ignored like that before. And just, you know, because even if you're a woman, being attractive does seem to give you, people will pay more attention to you. Like, and so even though I was the most knowledgeable one about it, like, I would answer the guy's question, and then like they would keep like talking to this other guy, and I'm still answering all the questions, but they're just like, I was like, why are they treating me like this? This was so weird. And that was not like the only time. Like, several occasions with that group, I was getting treated like that. And then I even started seeing it happen when I was going to like conferences and things for my work, you know, where in other cases people would come up and, you know, talk to me, want to socialize with me or whatever, and it just wasn't happening. And, you know, a part of me said, well, maybe I wasn't feeling confident because, you know, I had put on the weight, but like, I didn't realize that I had put on as much weight as I did. It was one of those things where like months later, after I'd already put on a bunch of weight, I like looked at myself in photos, and I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize like how much weight I had put on. And then even then, I didn't think I had put on as much weight as I had, because I look back at those photos now and I was like, oh my gosh, I was even like bigger than I realized, even at the time when I had looked at those photos. So I didn't realize there was anything different with me. So it wasn't like a difference in confidence. It was just strictly like I had put on weight and people were treating me like completely differently. So yeah, I mean, there is truth to the, you know, fat acceptance people saying that like, you know, you get treated differently just based on your weight, even if nothing else is different. So there is definitely truth in that, but then some of it, I think, just like goes too far with it, I guess. So let's see. Yeah. First, I thought it was just that group I was associating with, and I put angel investment bros. I said, yeah, then I traveled to some work conferences and was treated very differently, particularly by men. It was like being unattractive made me invisible and unintelligent to them. So, yeah, I mean, I guess I think growing up in I guess you'd call me middle income, like my upbringing was so weird because we were actually pretty poor when I was young. And that's what I mean. Like, I was too young or naive to realize if I did face adversity, because we were more on the poor end when I was young. And then when I was young, my dad started his business, and my mom moved up in the company that she was working in. And so then at that point, it was kind of like we were more in like a pretty stable, like middle income. And then we had our grandparents to help us out. So I never felt like, even when we were poorer, I didn't feel like, you know, we still had like food on the table. So it wasn't like to the extent that we were struggling to like eat or have shelter, because we lived in this house that my grandparents, like on my grandparents' property, they helped my parents like build a little house for us to live in when we were little. And so we always had shelter, we always had food. We had like my grandparents helping to like watch us and babysit us, so we never struggled anything like that. But then when I got older, we did have, you know, we were able to go on vacation every couple of years. And you know, as my dad's business started making more money, my mom took care of most of the finances with her job. She could pay for pretty much everything. And then if we needed to buy something big, sometimes my dad would like chip in and pay for like a vacation or something. Or like, you know, just something more expensive that we needed to buy. Like, it was weird because it was like his business money was like his money. And whenever he felt like he wanted to share it with us, he would on occasion. But yeah, so I kind of saw, but yeah, like I never felt like I had to deal with like much adversity, at least like growing up. Whenever I got older and my dad went through like his weird thing that put him in prison and everything, like thankfully I didn't have to deal with that when I was young. That may have been a little bit harder, but that was when I was older and out of the house, so it wasn't really that much of a stress on me. But yeah, it was more like, I guess, what you may face being a woman. But I don't feel like I really faced like too much of it. Like, some of these stories I hear from other women, like I understand it, like it's definitely believable, but for whatever reason, I've had some bad stuff happen to me, like dealing with men, but it could have been a lot worse. And I'm actually surprised that worse things didn't happen to me. And I don't know what it would be like dating right now or being on the apps and things like that. I was like after my time, and I've never really dated. Actually, most of my boyfriends had come from like jobs or school or things like that. So it was people that like I already knew. I had a like social relationship with before we got into like a relationship. So I never really had to deal with like just random dating random guys. But yeah, like putting on weight definitely gave me like a different perspective. And yeah, but I don't feel like any of that was really like adversity compared to, I've mentioned this book that I've been reading, that Worlds Apart book. And that is like, I couldn't imagine growing up like facing some of the things that like the people in this book face, from either being like not just poor but like living in poverty, or you know, having issues due to race. Like we moved, like one of the chapters was Appalachia and the people who were like living in poverty with no jobs and no way to really get out of it. And then the second chapter of the book is about living in the Delta. And so you've got that plus the racial aspect, and then, you know, the historical things left over from slavery. So that's, you know, putting it in that context, I don't really feel like I've dealt with that much adversity. And I've mentioned before, like, I think I was fortunate to have at least some members of my family, you know, kind of push I think it just helps to have someone like believe in you, and to have someone, you know, say like, you can do this, and let you know. And that's one thing that the book is kind of showing, is like some of those people that did have someone there like pushing them to, you know, you can do this, you can do better, like, you know, it may, you know, take some work, but you're smart and you're bright and you can do this. That seemed to make the difference for a lot of the people who were able to like make it out of poverty or to do better, is just having someone there to like kind of guide them, and kind of, if not, if they didn't have the resources to guide them, to at least like give them the confidence to think that they could do it. And so I think I was lucky to have that, to have people like push me to get my education and things like that. So I think for whatever adversity I did have, like, I think that was definitely helpful. And I know, like, there's this person that I know that, like, his family was different than mine. He was smart, but at a young age, his family had just told him, like, you're just not good at math. Like, none of us are good at math, so don't worry about it if you don't do good at math. And he just thought he was kind of just not good at school, not good at math. That wasn't going to be his future. His future was going to be to, you know, have some sort of a trade job, or to, you know, not that there's anything wrong with that, but like, he thought that that was his path, but it wasn't for him. Like, he had tried to work in that for a while, and then he had a partner come into his life that was like, no, you're smart, you can go to school, you can do this, you can do better. And he had to take some kind of like remedial classes when he first got into college, because he did lack in like math. But it was like, once he had the right teacher, and once he had people like telling him like, you can do this, and once he learned how to study and it clicked with him, he aced like all of his math. He actually was really good at math. He was really good at school, and he went on to like finish college and got a really good job. And so I think sometimes it just takes people like believing in you, and not people like putting you down and telling you like, oh, you know, that's just the way it is, you're not good at that. Like, I don't know. Anyway, that's what I had for that day, and I will be back tomorrow for day 185.